Hey, welcome to Mikey's Video Game Madness. Today we're playing Dante's Inferno on the PlayStation 3. This is very loosely based on the poem The Divine Comedy, written by Dante Alighieri. If I said his last name wrong, I apologize. There's probably many more errors to come in this video. It's one of my little quirks. Go figure. But anyway, this only deals with the portion of hell. The reason why I guess you could say it's from Dante's Inferno, but the whole story is the Divine Comedy because, first of all, let's go back to the definition, the true definition of comedy. Because I think people kind of get it confused when they go and get a comedic book in the comedy section, or they go and buy a comedy movie and it's funny. The literary term of comedy, at least in English, because that's the only language I unfortunately speak, I guess uncultured, if you will. Anyway, basically comedy just means a story with a happy ending. So anyway, and the poem, The Divine Comedy, Dante visits all the levels of hell, then he goes to purgatory, and then he actually goes to heaven and meets Beatrice and all that jazz. This just focuses on the portion where he visits hell. Also, in the poem, Dante was not a warrior. He wasn't like in the Crusades and got stabbed in the back or anything like that. He's actually brought to, and I've read Divine Comedy years ago, so if I'm not completely accurate with my facts and stuff like that, I apologize. You can go and read the Divine Comedy. Feel free. It's pretty cool, especially if you get the version with the wood print pictures in them. They're absolutely amazing. It's some of my favorite artwork to look at. Even though I don't have any of the prints or a book with the pictures in it, I really always loved the book with the wood prints in it. We actually had a school book that had some of them in it, not all of them. I would just like a book with the pictures in it. So if you want to donate, feel free. But anyway, yeah, so basically the poet Dante was brought to hell, and each layer all the way down to the bottom, and then he goes to purgatory and all this stuff, just basically write about it and tell people how horrible hell is, what purgatory is like, and how great heaven is and everything, and then write about it. I don't think he was the cleanest person in the world as far as sins go and stuff like that, so he was kind of warned. Virgil was his guy, but I don't think Virgil could go to any of the divine like levels. Like, I don't think he could go to heaven. I think Beatrice actually takes him to heaven, if I remember correctly. So yeah, but that wouldn't make a really good video game to have Virgil as your guy take you to places and you just cry the whole time and then talk to some famous people that you might recognize, like Cleopatra, who's in this game in a very interesting way. But yeah, like throughout the story, Virgil kind of guides Dante. He sees something, he gets upset over it, and they move on to something that's probably even more terrible. And basically each level of hell has punishments based on like your sins. Like, so if you went to hell for like sloth or whatever, you'd be drowning in shit and choking on it and all this stuff, and I'm not making it up. I believe later on there's a level about it. And then gluttony, it's all these force-fed people and people that committed adultery and stuff like that were all connected by their genitals and twirled around in a tornado for all eternity. So there's a lot of interesting imagery, but in order to make a decent action game, that wasn't going to fly. Now, you're going to see Censor Kitty on here. I've tried to edit this the best I could, was still trying to show you some of the scenes that are going on in this game. For some reason or another, Visceral Studio, an excellent studio. I don't know what went wrong with Battlefield Hardline, which they worked on. It's actually a good game for the content that's there, but I was just expecting a longer, more in-depth single-player campaign. It was so short, but it had so many good ideas that the Battlefield series could have really used, like these sandbox-like levels that were really nice, especially the one in Florida. That was awesome. So Visceral Studios worked on this game, and the Dead Space games, another series I really love. This, you can get pissed off if you want to. Oh well. Looks like all three of you maybe that watch this. I appreciate you guys that watch this. I appreciate the channel. But, you know, this is stress relief for me. This is me sharing my love of games or whatever. This is essentially a God of War clone. But that's not necessarily a bad thing. And the reason why I say it's a God of War clone, because the battle system is almost exactly like God of War, down to the buttons that you press. Now this is great considering the fact that this game also came out on the Xbox 360. Xbox 360 doesn't have a God of War trilogy or how many God of War games are at the time. I don't even think God of War 3 was out, so you had 2 God of Wars. I don't think they had the collection out on PlayStation 3. So it was a good tide me over type of game for PlayStation owners. A good game on its own, and the Xbox 360's answer to God of War, because honestly, as far as these type of 3D brawler action games, whatever you want to call them, go, God of War is the best, as the best controls in my opinion, the most responsive controls. After God of War, Batman Arkham seems to take the throne of 3D fighting action games as far as the battle system goes. I hope God of War doesn't do that in the next installment, where now you'll see most of the games that were originally in the style of God of War, like if they were this type of action game, now they're starting to copy the Batman Arkham style, where some sort of icon or warning pops over the person's head, some sort of cue. Even Assassin's Creed is doing it now a little bit, which is great. I love both battle systems, but you know, since I've been playing most games that copy Arkham, as I've been going back and doing a lot of these action oriented games, it reminds me how much I miss the God of War style too. So I hope games that mix it up a little bit. But you know, if you're gonna copy from the best. Now, what I do like about this game, not maybe more than God of War, I like it as much. I like the extreme Judeo-Christian / Catholic imagery versus the Greek mythology imagery. I don't know. I'm trying to think that if people would feel like, well, I grew up Roman Catholic, or at least my mom's side of the family is Roman Catholic, and this game would probably be extremely offensive to them, especially the way they portray like the Pope. Not my mom's side of the family, they were never into like the whole Vatican portion of it all that much, you know. They always kept it in mind, but they weren't like super devout in the way that like some people are towards the Pope. But back when the poem that this is based on was actually written, I think the poet Dante actually had some reservations about where religion was going and stuff like that, because during this time people were actually being killed sometimes over like their belief system. These wars were fighting over religion, which is kind of relevant today. I don't think it ever stops being relevant. Basically any kind of difference of anything like starts a war, especially when it comes to religion and stuff like that. But then they had the Passion of the Christ, which sort of makes you feel guilty. Sort of. I'm sure it does, depending on who you are. Just watching a man being tortured all the time. Like, the whole goal of it is to make you feel really guilty as a person that this Savior came and suffered for you for all your sins. And it's extremely bloody and gruesome and everything, because I guess reading about it in Bible text just isn't haunting enough, so they really want to show it. And I'm not sharing my belief system or anything like that, but I feel that it's almost impossible to cover this game without talking about some of these themes a little bit briefly. Now, you'll see that Censor Cat is censoring. He's doing his job. That's not my cat. It's amazing all the memes you can find on the internet. I wanted a cat that censored something, and sure enough, the internet's golden for that sort of thing. But yeah, I don't know why Visceral Studios felt obligated to make Beatrice halfway naked all the time. Even in the beginning of the game, that like I censored when he was walking towards the body. She had a dress on. Now when I edit, I see like a small window, so I can't see whether the nipple was exposed, so I cut a portion of it when she was on the ground. But even with a dress on, like, her nipple had to be exposed. By the way, that was Satan dragging her down, but I couldn't show it to you because this game just wants to show breasts non-stop. It's whatever. But yeah, that's why you see the cat. Like, I don't believe in censorship, although I have to do it on here just to be safe. I don't think I would probably get in trouble, but it makes me feel better, it has a peace of mind. Now, there's some shots of Beatrice naked farther away, but I figured as long as it's not in focus, I don't think it'll offend anybody, because it's essentially a silhouette. I just kind of tried to take out the close-ups because I didn't want you to lose an idea of what was happening in the game, like content-wise. But yeah, this game's like, this is another game that reminds me of where Castlevania went wrong. So a few years later, they came out with a 3D Castlevania, right? Uses the God of War fighting style. Great, perfect, already on a great route. Then you have Kojima helping out, even better. I don't know what contributions that he made. I also need to cover Castlevania 2, by the way. The Lords of Shadow Castlevania 2, but they don't feel like Castlevania games because they have like, well, they had the gothic part down pretty well, but the enemies and stuff like that, they fit more in line with Lord of the Rings, with orcs and trolls and stuff like that. Castlevania took most of its enemies and themes from Christianity, Greek mythology, the occult, stuff like that. Maybe even some folklore, things like that. No trolls, no orcs, no stupid shit. Like, it's not stupid. I like Lord of the Rings too, but it doesn't have that kind of stuff in it like you would see in Lord of the Rings. It's different things. This is how bad it is. Like, also the music was great for a game like this, but not Castlevania. Castlevania always had like a rock and roll, depending on what decade it came out of. I of course prefer the what the NES could accomplish as far as like a 80s nostalgic soundtrack goes, but it was gothic with like modern instruments and a quick modern beat. Sometimes you'd have gothic levels, and then all of a sudden you have like this 80s tune, and then when the CD-ROM Castlevanias came out and Nintendo DS games came out, it had like a 90s rock and roll feel to it, and it's always awesome. And I think the developers forgot about all this stuff, and this game has the enemy types and stuff, and so does God of War. If they just mash these two games together, you would have what I would consider the perfect Castlevania game. And I'm not trying to bash on Lord of Shadows, because I completed it from start to finish, but the whole time you're playing, you're like silently whispering to yourself, please show me something familiar, please show me something Castlevania. Like, you're just trying to really concentrate to the music, because sometimes you'll hear slight little cues of hints of some of the songs in past games. That's pretty bad. You gotta look for things that remind you of the game, and it's like, this is Castlevania. They've done so much so right, and yet another thing I didn't like, they changed the whole story. All the story fits within basically 3 games. You had Lords of Shadow, then you had the Mirrors of Fate, which was on the 3DS, and then they came out with a downloadable HD version. If you got the special version of Lords of Shadow on either the Xbox 360 or the PlayStation 3, it came with the DLC and the downloadable HD version. It's a good game in its own right. I just don't think it deserves to be called Castlevania. Should have been called something else. I don't know what. It probably should have Lord of the something else in it, not rings, because it doesn't have rings in it as far as I can remember. Second one actually has a pretty cool idea too. It would be a cool game in its own right if it didn't have the Castlevania game name on it, because with Castlevania you expect certain expectations, but by itself it's a great game. And the second one wasn't as well received. I haven't played much of the second one, but from what I played of the second one, it seemed alright. I'm not talking about this game as much because I feel like with all these action games, you've kind of seen all of this. You kind of know what's going to happen. It just looks cool. The imagery is really cool. With these guys, you have to actually use your little ice attack and stuff like that. Dante did none of this in the story. Also, I'm not sure if it's in the standard edition. I got some used version of a special edition, but I think all the PlayStation 3 versions have it. I think it only goes through the Inferno part, but you actually can read the actual poem of Dante's Inferno, but it might turn some readers off because it's an old poem, so it's not written the way people would speak today. It's kind of like reading Shakespeare, where it's like in that really old English Shakespearean language that, and also it's a poem, so there's some liberties there, and the linguistics of it all. I'm trying to sound like a professor here, but yeah, that's kind of cool. But you could probably get the book, and you probably wouldn't have bloodshot eyes trying to read a fairly long poem on the TV screen. But I think it's something that's pretty interesting, and if you have any interest in one's version of hell, it's not the biblical version of hell that you would probably think of hell as being. There's some parts of hell in Dante's Inferno that's much like what you would go to like a fire and brimstone church and they would try to threaten you with, but then there's other parts that are completely unlike it, and I just find it fascinating. A lot of people skip over the purgatory and heaven part because, you know, I guess we just like our violence. It's more interesting, I guess, than people being happy all the time and great stuff happening. Purgatory is interesting though, because purgatory, spoiler alert of something that's hundreds of years old, purgatory is interesting because the people are still being tortured horribly, like boulders rolling over the people and breaking their bones horribly. Basically, when you're tortured in hell, like, your body gets destroyed and then it gets, basically, it forms again, so you just get tortured over and over and over and over and over again. By the way, if you're curious about the poem Why Dante Never Gets Hurt, because Virgil the guide actually protects Dante from getting hurt. There's like this deal or whatever where Dante doesn't get hurt. I don't remember the specifics. Like I said, it's early 2000s since I read it. I do remember the pictures though, because I just thought they were great pieces of artwork. It's very imaginative and a different take on hell. Make a great movie, but if you think this is what the poem is going to be like this game and all these monsters and jumping on the monster and driving it around and smashing demons, and Dante fights death off and steals his sickle and all this shit, you're in a rude awakening. Because sometimes, even when he's in hell, it might be boring to you and a little bit preachy. Because, I mean, the guy's seeing all this horrible stuff. And he's upset about it. So, I mean, like, if the game was accurate to the poem, it would just be like Virgil taking you to this place. It would probably be more like a Telltale adventure game where you would just have options of questions to ask people. Because Dante could go into the different parts of hell when the people are being tortured, and he could go over and actually talk to the people that are being tortured and stuff like that, and ask them questions. Where did they go wrong? What did they do? And the people are like, you don't want to be here. I shouldn't have done this or shouldn't have done that. And there's figures throughout history. Some of Dante's friends, I believe he met in there. I believe that happened. It's a long time. It's vague. As I'm talking about it, I'm getting flashes of memories. Excuse me. This whole couple of months, it's been so hard. So I'm doing a video and talking and thinking at the same time. Like, other stuff is playing in my mind, so it's tough. I appreciate you guys so much for sticking with it and watching my videos. Trust Deft, if you haven't checked his channel out, definitely check his channel. He's the one that asked me to do Dante's Inferno, and I was very reluctant about it because I knew that I would have to do a lot of editing, because Visceral Studios really like Beatrice's breasts a whole lot, and they wanted to show them constantly in this game, and I had to put that kitten up quite a few times, and I'm scared that I missed a time where I was supposed to edit, but hopefully it's fine. Even if I didn't edit it, I think I'll be alright. One of Mark Bustler's last videos, it was kind of funny when I think he thought that he wasn't gonna do videos anymore, or maybe he did. I don't know what his plan was, but it looked pretty grim. So like one of his last videos, you never hear Mark cuss. Maybe a couple of videos I've ever seen in Classic Game Room, if you don't know who Mark Bustler is. But I'm sure if you're part of the gaming community or watch gaming videos on YouTube, you know what Classic Game Room is. And he used the F word. the F word. I say fuck all the time. I don't know why I was trying to say it nice now. Maybe it's because of all this other controversial shit on the screen that I edited it with a kitten. But yeah, he used the F word, and I can't remember what game he was playing, which is really bad because it's just a sign of getting older. But I believe there was nudity in it. It had to be a recent game because I don't remember ever seeing nudity in modern games until... Gee, I know they had maybe one on the PlayStation 2 or something. I know they had that. It was so stupid. BMXXX. They censored the PlayStation version, and I think the Xbox version to have an edge over the PlayStation 2. They kept the nudity in, but I didn't really start seeing nudity until like the PlayStation 3. I remember the first time I actually heard the F word was in the game Blood Rain. I had to do a double take. I remember exactly. It was when you were in the swamps in New Orleans, and I remember Blood Rain going, "What the fuck?" And I thought I heard it, and then I died, and then I played it again, and she's like, "What the fuck?" And I was like, holy shit, they're using the F word. And then after that, like, they didn't even use the F word in Grand Theft Auto Vice City, and then it was F-bombs galore. But yeah, like, I don't know. This is a great game. Dante's Inferno, awesome. Check out Trust F's channel. Thank you guys so much for watching. Take care.
If you want to, like, comment, and subscribe. Thanks for watching.